Let's begin then with approval of this evening's agenda. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Our June 27th adoption of our regular council meeting minutes from June 27th.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Casper. Any errors, omissions, or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Receipt of draft council committee minutes for information. We'll do them as a block. The June 7th Parks and Trails Advisory Committee, the June 23rd Climate Change Action Committee, and June 29th SUC Program of the Arts. Moved adoption by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any question on the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Delegations, we have two this evening. So I'd like to invite our first delegation forward. A reminder that there's 5 minutes for the delegation and that we will be hearing from Ms. Margarita Dominguez. Welcome. And if you could please turn on the microphone. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. Please be patient with me because I had a virus and I am feeling like Chrétien. I cannot talk too much. I cannot pronounce certain letters. Okay, where is it? And we decided to do this presentation because we think that is the time taking one of your quotes. A healthy community is a strong one. We believe that you have done a remarkable job. Congratulate Council for this, for the Malion Creek golf course, and also for the Galloping Goose. That is a lot of activities for the youth and the people in the community, which that is really healthy, and we support completely that. But in addition to that, we would like to see some soup kitchens in SUC, at least one soup kitchen, because exercise is good, but without food, exercise doesn't exist. And the same thing, housing is the right moment to apply for housing grants. And emergency shelter, our youth, in this moment in SUC, they are, I'll continue after. The soup kitchen, there is one in Victoria that is very successful. And in general, the soup kitchens offer 1 or 2 or 3 meals a day, warm meals. I know that in SUC, there are the SUC Baptist Church that offers breakfast, the Friday lunch at the Holy Trinity, the Crisis Center, the food bank. In 2014, there were 5,140 adults, 2,600 children, and a total of 3,200 hampers handed. In 2015, the demand increased by 22%. Affordable housing. There are several members in the community that express interest in perhaps taking upon a project like this. And as I explained in my text, this is for the people that they are hard to house. And Opportunity Village in Eugene, Oregon is a perfect example. And it costs under $100,000 in cash donations and nearly an equal amount in materials and in-kind donations. The Emerald Village is the second village that they are. The mayor of Eugene is on the go, and it has community gardens, and it's sustainable. This is the Emerald Village. It has tiny houses, 140 by 200 square feet, with a small kitchen and bathroom, supported by common gathering and garden areas. What we saw, the example in Tent City, is that people want to stay together. Before Tent City, we know that because we go there on a regular basis. They are sleeping on the streets, and they have no friendship support. They're always in danger. They're always scared. And by having a community place, they feel more protected. Residents in the Emerald program residents will make monthly payments of $200 to $250. The same thing was said by Lisa Helps. Why we use the micro-housing village in SUC, why we need one. The BC Housing single parents, that live in the subsidized buildings. When the children turn 18, the mothers or the single fathers, they have to leave the place. And in the same time, they lose the child allowances. All those youths stay with nowhere to go in Suk. And they have no services other than some care services so that the CASA offers and the food offers. But they need hot meals. They need a place to stay. The mothers or the fathers cannot survive on themselves either. The men and women suffering from chemical imbalance in their brains and who are diagnosed or disabled have a very hard time to find a place to live. Welfare and disability recipients cannot afford the new high rental prices. Pet owners do not want to kill the furry friends. The private acts protect the BCSPCA from releasing information about their animals and their death. This is a landlord near here that bulldozed the house of a disabled man. It happened a month ago. The man, I had to rescue him, my son too, slept inside his truck in front of my house for a while. He's a poor man, he's not a bad man. He has a chemical imbalance. This lady, a lot of people may have seen her in Suk, her dog in the car, is her landlord, that is acquaintance to the other landlord, cheated her with the sewage. When the mothers bought the house, nothing was talked about the sewage installation and reconnection.
Ms. Dominguez, I'm sorry, but the 5 minutes is ticking, so if you could please wrap up your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Well, what we are talking is even if Suk, there is, talking about the pets, a lot of people that they are disabled, they need the pets. It's the only family they have. And I prove in your documents that the SPCA, just in the year before the statistic became private, they killed 906 dogs and 5,218 cats. That is the proof. That is a kill shelter. People don't want to send the dogs there. Medicine Hat, Ted Clarkson Mayor, is ending homelessness. His program in housing is very successful. We estimate that there are 50 people in Suk homeless in this moment, but they are sleeping in other people's homes. And landlords are getting hurt by that. Some others are squattering, that is typical in Suk, in abandoned houses or in empty houses, which we consider that we need to have the youth center in Victoria, in Suk, they go to the youth center out of the rain shelter in Victoria. And they also go to Kulei Society. And we believe that until something is done here, offer meals for these people. The emergency shelter that used to be the weather shelter here didn't work because they had no hot meals. They have nothing on what to rely. It's just a mat on the floor. But we believe that until we need to work all together to try at least to help, like we tried to get bike trails. And
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. Sorry, there's the 5 minutes for every delegation that everyone gets. We did receive a lot of your information that I know Council has gone through, so we really appreciate your time in bringing this forward. I know there was 2 items. There was a request to look at is setting up a task force to deal with housing. We have had dialogue at Council about having some sort of a housing forum in the fall. So it is something that sort of like a housing forum, a housing workshop or discussion to look at the spectrum of housing. So it is something that's on Council's mind. Do we need to perhaps look at zoning to allow different homes, all those sorts of things. So that is something that we are planning for.
Are you here saying that you're supporting the micro-housing project?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying we want to look at all varieties of housing and then to have information brought forward so that Council can take a look at what we can do for all levels of the housing spectrum. So that is in the works right now. The second part of your delegation was about off-leash, Ms. Dominguez, I'm speaking now, an off-leash area for dogs on the Whiffin Spit. It's something that our Parks and Trails Committee can look at, but it's my understanding right now that dogs are allowed off-leash provided they're in control by the owner at all times of year. So that is already in place.
Can we work at least from 8 to 8 if you cannot? If we cannot afford to do a fence.
Ms. Dominguez, we've received the report. What I'm saying is that the dogs are currently allowed to be off leash at all times, provided they're in control by the owners.
They're always fighting for that.
So that's something that perhaps our Parks and Trails Committee can look at further. And so at this point, are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Loggins?
I just have a quick comment. I wanted to say thank you for bringing these things forward. As our mayor said, it is very timely, and we are looking forward to having those affordable housing conversations in the fall. There are no rentals for almost anyone, and especially for people with animals. And that is exactly how pets end up in the kill shelter. So you bring forward some really great points. And one thing I wanted to add as well that I just found out from a youth who participated in the survey, about 20% of youth in Sooke consider themselves homeless.
What we would like to ask is a committee where the community can get involved, not just a decision from you in the beginning. Just invite the public to comment and the ones that they are going to be interested in collaborating in this, because there is a lot of people in Sooke that they really want this to happen.
Yeah, that's why we're planning some sort of a workshop or
and
something.
In the meantime, it
Ms.
will be good.
Dominguez, thank you very much. We are planning an event in the fall.
Thank you.
To cover that. So we appreciate it. It's very timely. Thank you for bringing it forward. Okay, our second one, D2, is the request for funding from the Silk Philharmonic Society. Ms. Kathleen Campbell. And if you could please turn on the microphone, and just a reminder that the delegations are 5 minutes. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much. The Sooke Philharmonic, as many of you know, is an amazing community orchestra which brings a considerable amount of enjoyment and prestige to the Sooke community. We recognize that this submission should have gone to you in March for the commitment that we're seeking. However, as a volunteer organization, we were in a period of transition and adjustment and unfortunately missed that particular deadline. Excuse me. As part of this adjustment, we took a closer look at our finances, and the Sooke Philharmonic has a potential loss of approximately $6,000 to $8,000 every concert. Memberships and ticket sales only cover about 50% of our costs. The rest is made up through grants, sponsorships, and fundraising, such as the garden tour, which you may all recognize. We did not apply earlier because during the last 2 years, the Society benefited from a couple of exceptional bequests that meant that we did not have to seek out additional funding. And so we took it a little bit for granted that we wouldn't need it again. However, this year, we do not only not have those bequests, but our costs have also risen. The Chrysler House, which until now offered us free rehearsal space, is being sold, so we have to also pay for additional rehearsal space. In order to cut our costs, we're planning to undertake 2 fewer concerts next year. That's 7 instead of 9. However, we would very much like to retain the Fling in our annual program. The Fling is very popular with the residents. It has an attendance from 400 to 500. We had it yesterday. We had a little over 400 there with the sunshine, thank goodness. It showcases a musical talent in the region, and it introduces a more classical range of music to a wider audience than normally attend our concerts, particularly to the children, which you may have seen dancing away yesterday, and the financially constrained families. We're asking for the commitment now because in order to plan our 2016-17 season, we have to have a decision sometime before August, because that is when our brochure goes out, which advertises all of our concerts, and the September deadline for the grant application is really too late for that. So I apologize for not coming earlier, but that is why we're coming on as an ad hoc request now. So as I mentioned, the Sooke Philharmonic is quite amazing. There's a video that was made of the origin and the progress of the Sooke Philharmonic. It's 35 minutes long. It's really quite touching. It's quite brilliant. It highlights Sooke very, very well. If you would like to borrow the disc, it hasn't been released yet, but if anyone would like to borrow the disc to watch it, it's fine. And then just this morning, the producers of this sent to me by Dropbox a 2-minute, 20-second trailer of this version, the version of this. So if you want to look at that, I will continue to work at how to understand Dropbox and Dropbox it to you either later today or tomorrow. I couldn't quite get that technology under my belt before I came today. I do apologize for that. But I thank you very much for your consideration. I hope you will take it under consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. I think if possible, if you could send us the Dropbox link to our info@souk.ca once you've undropped it, I guess, then it can make its way to us here. And then also the CD, if you're able to provide it to our CAO who's sitting at the end there, then any member of council could borrow it and return it, and perhaps she can keep it safely for you. And if that eventually is put in the Dropbox, that would be great too. Sometimes now it's a matter of finding a device that can play certain things, and that seems difficult. It sounds more difficult than it should be, but it's true.
Well, I managed to look at myself. It's a very, very good little trailer for this, and it's a great promotional.
Oh, sorry, your microphone.
Sorry. And it's also a great promotional item for Souk itself because of the way it highlights the Souk community, and that's why I had hoped so much to be able to show it to you tonight. But I'll certainly leave it to you, and perhaps you can see it tomorrow or so.
Great, thank you. Councillor Casper, then Councillor Parkinson.
Yeah. So I'm supportive. I don't know if you're aware that at our last council meeting we made a decision that all arts-related grant application would go to the Souk program and the Arts Committee. And so their meeting, their tentative schedule is July 27th.
Okay, no, I wasn't aware.
Okay, so that's something new, and I think with our direction, I would feel comfortable by having the Souk Program Arts Committee actually, deliberating on their requests as per what we passed at our last council meeting, to move it forward. Then it would meet your deadline by August 1st, correct?
That would be lovely.
But just to interject here, though, but the Souk Program of the Arts would then need to report back to council, and we don't meet until September.
Well, I think in this case, because they already have an allocated budget amount, and if I may, not trying to speak for council, but it's my understanding that our decision would be to refer these projects to that organization and giving them some delegated authority. They've already had a fairly high degree of delegated authority over the years. They do have a budget, and I think it works. It bodes well because then it's the arts group and that committee that's supporting art, right?
Councillor Parkinson?
So right now, are you, through you, your worship, are you seeking sponsorship to help cover the cost of the concert that you just had in the park? Or are you looking for it to support the upcoming concerts, the funding?
We're looking for it in order to be sure that we can make the commitment for next year. I catch the eye of our treasurer here. I think we can squeak by this year. However, we don't have the normal little reserve of funds that we normally have to be able to ensure that we can operate this next upcoming season.
Thank you. I understand that we had decided that the Souk Program for the Arts would be looking after all art programs, but I wasn't sure when that would be put into place for the committee to be doing this, and whether there would be the additional funds coming from the grant committee to offset that into the Souk Program for the Arts. So I think that would need to be looked at as well. So I wasn't sure when that was going to happen. So I would like to see us supporting our Souk Philharmonic Orchestra. I think that we are a very fortunate town to have an orchestra here, and it's been here for 15 years? 20 years? And I would like to see it still stay here. So if we can do something sooner rather than later, I would really like that. Thank you.
Councillor Loggins?
I have to play the devil's advocate because you did provide us with the financials. The budget that was submitted is concerning to me because even with the $5,000 that you're requesting, there's a $3,300 loss. So my biggest concern is that the funds that we'd be giving to you would essentially be retroactive funding going towards that loss that you have in place.
As I said, I think we will be able to use other funds, as we say, to squeak by this year, that this would really go towards ensuring that we can go forward with our 2016-17 program and be able to publicize it all in the brochure.
So is this budget that you provided for this year or for next year? Because I have the District of Sauk request is listed in the budget here with the first one dated July 10th, 2016, page 44.
I could possibly clarify.
Yeah.
We're putting the
Pardon me, Mr. Mitchell, I need you to come to the microphone.
Thank you. Yeah, the request came at the last minute. It's for the next year, like for the 16-17 season. And
Is the budget for the next year or is it the budget for this year?
Well, they're pretty well comparable. Like we have the same musicians that play, and we have so many. What do you call them? The talent that we bring in, we pay them. We pay the hall rentals and all that goes with it. The honorariums that we pay to the musicians. So each budget is pretty much the same, and overall, it's just over $11,000. Give or take each year, and we've been funding it from different sources over the years, and from other funding sources that we get, and from memberships and that. But in each concert, whether it's the concert through the year or the fling, they all lose money. Every orchestra in Canada and pretty well the world, I guess, loses money, and so you have to count on your memberships to support that. And you're just trying to get the artists playing. There's not many orchestras around where the musicians can come and play. That's why we have a long list of people that want to play at the Sauk Philharmonic Orchestra. Other orchestras charge them to play because there's just not many orchestras around. So far, the Sauk Philharmonic has been able to not charge the members, the orchestra members, for playing, and so it's a benefit for them. And we keep supporting the young people coming through. And there's a harmony project coming along now that's teaching the young students to play the instruments, and they're finding already that they're doing better in school just by presenting them with that music program, that they're concentrating on their studies a lot better. So to answer your question, it was a long-winded thing here. The budget is pretty well laid out the same. I think the date was maybe wrong on that one that submitted. We had that prepared first, and then it got submitted. So it's for the next year, but we usually have to plan everything a year in advance. So we're just, because for the last few years, our dollars haven't been tight, because we had these bequests that allowed us to get some risers that we can share with other groups in town, just so we can see the orchestra members better, and we got extra lights and stuff for the orchestra members and different things. So we spent some dollars on capital equipment. We did the film to promote Sauk. So there's been a lot of dollars spent, and it wasn't tight, and we sort of fell behind a bit on our membership drives and stuff. So it's now coming into the push again that we're trying to present, get everything organized for the next year.
Just to clarify the budget situation here, I have the 2013 and 2014 budgets. 2014 was a deficit of $4,700. Then the next budget I have is the one that looks the newest, and that's a deficit of $3,300, and the District of Sauk's $5,000 is included in that.
That's
so right. Is that so are we missing the 2015 budget? Like, what is the current?
Oh, you don't have the 15 and 16. We just had the 16's fling yesterday.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what is the current deficit, because we're missing that piece.
The date was wrong. It should be 2015.
Oh,
well,
15. 15. So, okay, so the current deficit would be 3,300, and then you're looking for 5,000 on top of that.
To allow for the
To
next
help
years.
for the
And
next-
we're
okay,
gonna
that's what
su-
I was trying to
We're going
clarify.
to support
Thanks.
the rest, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Mr.
that was what I
Mitchell.
was trying to get.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Casper has a question for staff.
Yeah, just for staff, so would it be probably the most expedited way of dealing with this is to fund half of the requests out of our current budget for this year and the other half out of next year's budget? Because it deals with monies that are being spent over 2 of our budget years, whereas their budget and their planning crosses over to 2 of our budget years. Does that make sense?
Through the chair, the policy doesn't allow for retroactive funding, so there's that bit of issue. The grant policy itself doesn't allow for that. Certainly, an application for next year's cost could be received now, and those are ones that we've received already with the April deadline. So we do 2 intakes for the Category B grants. One is April 30th and one is September 30th. So.
But at this point, if I may, I'm not seeing this as a grant application. Because of the timing, the group has come forward to council, and all the grant applications come forward to council anyway to be ratified. It's just would council consider funding this? I hear Councillor Casper's point about art requests going to the SUC program of the arts, but their terms of reference need to be amended. As it stands right now, I understand the SPA committee funds looks after the capital projects. This is something different. So I think that whole process come fall needs to be amended to have this happen. I think in terms of timing, council needs to determine whether or not we look at funding this.
Okay, well, I'll move the application be approved.
Okay.
And I'd second that.
Further discussion, Councillor Loggins. Microphone.
Move things around here. So, from what I can remember, we can either do it as a grant or we can do it as a sponsorship. So where does this fall? And then, where does it fall in our policy?
Well, I see it not as a grant application because it isn't being entered that way. It would be perhaps a sponsorship that would come from council contingency. I'll just confirm that with our staff. Yeah, I'm seeing some nods.
I would say, yeah, it would fit there better than the grant policy, yeah, for sure.
Yes, and that leaves the grant intact for the grant committee, whatever's in the pot for them come September and their deliberations. We can sort out the piece for the SUC program and the arts committee, get the terms of reference updated, and this would come from contingency, and that's why the contingency is there. Okay, so is that clear on the motion? So the motion is that we support the funding request in the amount of $5,000. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Councillor Loggins is opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support.
Okay. So moving on in the agenda, we have a public and question and comment period that is, the first piece is specific to the 2016 Statement of Financial Information. At our last council meeting of June the 27th, there was a request because we received that report on the day of the meeting that there was no opportunity really for the public to ask any questions or state any comments. So council put forward a motion that we allocate some time this evening for that particular item. So I'll open the floor for the rest of tonight's agenda is public and comment, but I just want to focus the first part specifically on the Statement of Financial Information report. If there were any questions about that anyone would like to put forward. The report has gone off to the province, which our staff notified us of because of the timelines, but we do perhaps get some feedback for next year's report. So welcome, and please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Ellen Lewis, 5526 Sioux Road. I have a couple questions. There must be a revenue drop because of the purchase of some properties, and I don't know where it shows in here. The Sioux River Road property, the Demamiel property, and the library property, because those taxes are now lost. So there must be a revenue drop, and where does that show?
Sorry, could you clarify the Demamiel? Are you referring to the golf course?
The golf course, right.
That would go through Sea Park, though.
Yes, but the taxes no longer, because when it's a public property, then the district doesn't get the taxes.
Oh, pardon me, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the purchase of
No,
those
I'm
lands.
talking about the taxes.
Okay,
Okay, so I'd like to see where that is, and also as well with the Demamio property, because there, even though it's a purchase, there are 75% of that comes from the district, and also the purchase of the Souk River Road property, same thing, 75% comes from the district of Souk for taxes, and the debt charges on the 1.4 million for the purchase of the library. I'd just like to see where that is, and because now we have a loss of revenue and also costs associated with that. I'd also like to know where in our budget, or where the discussion, where the council resolution was to not print agendas. I didn't ever remember hearing anything as part of the budget discussion, and one was this past to remove the agenda package from the budget, because it's been a part of the budget since we've been incorporated, and I don't see that it's been removed, and it's always been funded. The bylaw is actually specifically for specific bylaws like zoning bylaw, OCPs, and it's always been that way. I know that I purchased these different bylaws from the district, and we've had to pay for them. That's what the intent of the bylaw was, and so I'd like to know why that's been changed and when.
sorry, did you have another question?
Right. Just a minute. I just wanted to know that. I want you to know how important that is with the property loss of revenue, because when we first incorporated, the lands, the Seraphim lands on Harborview were part of our incorporation. They're part of the lands that we use for tax base. And when the CRD took that property from us, there was a severe loss of revenue, and it really affected how we managed our budget. So I think we need to know those figures, and I'd appreciate it if we knew them, and it should be part of our budget.
Okay. Perhaps if I may defer to staff just for some feedback, please, on the Sophie report in terms of the reduction in the property tax revenue with the land purchases, like where, if you could please answer Ms. Lur's questions on this.
Yes, Your Worship. The Sophie report is our audited financial statements plus any cash expenses over $25,000, any payments to suppliers over that amount, also the salaries and the grant payments. So it doesn't address property tax variance issues. That is addressed in the budget. If we know ahead of time a property is going to be in or out of our tax, then we won't build it in, obviously. If it comes out after the fact, we'll get a supplemental adjustment from BC Assessment. So it isn't, if you look at the property tax number in the financial statements here, that's all you're seeing in a Sophie report. You're not getting detailed information like that, and nor are we expected to provide that.
Okay, and what about the agenda?
Okay, perhaps I'll defer to our CAO on that.
Your Worship, if I may, that was simply an operational decision. It's in keeping with a lot of other municipalities across Canada who've gone to electronic agendas.
Okay, Councillor Casper would like to answer.
Yeah, just as a reminder to council and our new staff and members of the public, when the district decided in 2014 to purchase these devices, that was the first step in the district going paperless. I'm a little slow on the uptake, I have to admit, and there are times when when I do ask for a copy, and so some time ago, between 2011 and 2014, there were on a number of occasions the urging internally by staff that we should be reducing the amount of paper that we're generating. And so I think the commitment started in 2014. The first steps were taken with these iPads being provided to council members, and for us to actually start to make some decisions that will encourage all of us, and I admit I'm a little slow on the uptake, to go paperless. So, I think we're heading in that direction. Maybe the policy needs to be looked at, but we've taken some steps, and I think the council members have been supportive of that.
Thank you, Councillor Casper. I think to date there is no resolution, but it is a policy that we will need to bring forward and discuss.
Yes,
further.
because there are costs associated with these
Yes.
plastic objects,
Thank you.
which are not recyclable as paper is. And as Councillor Casper said, rightly so, many of us are not so savvy as to use those things. And I think it removes a lot of the public from being able to be involved as we should be, because this is an access to our council and to council minutes and to agendas. And I feel that we're being shut out by that, because to me, it's a very important thing. I like to write notes on it, and I like to flick back and forth in the pages, like many people do. Yeah. And I think that council should really reconsider this, because it's a very important thing to keep people engaged with the council and what's happening.
No, that's really good feedback. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lurs. Are there any other questions from the public related to the Sophie report, specifically? I'll call for a second time. Okay, so now I'd like to just go into the general public question and comment period, and that is specific to tonight's agenda. So if anyone has any questions or comments about items on the agenda, please come forward. We just need your name and address for the record, and there's 2 minutes per person. Sir, we just need you to turn on the microphone, please.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
I got a pretty loud voice.
Well, the people watching at home won't be able to pick you up through the microphone.
That's the thing. Thank you very much. Does it work? Good. I have a few things to mention here that I have read a piece in a paper.
Sorry, could I just have your name and address for the record, please?
Oh, Robert Donald Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And your address?
Box, let's see, 2002 Kaltassin Road. I came here today because of the letter that was written in the Mirror about this, you being offended by this harassment you've been getting. What is this? Is this what this is all about today?
It's not on this evening's agenda.
Oh, I was told it was.
Perhaps if you could let me know where it was on the agenda.
Well, I don't know. I was told that it was today that I had to come to this meeting.
It's not on this evening's agenda.
I didn't see it, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. So it's not there.
No.
When are you going to have this meeting over this, please? I'd like to know.
I'm not certain which meeting you're talking about.
Over this harassment business that you were being offended by, the council.
No one on council was offended, sir.
Did you not write that in the paper?
I didn't write anything to the paper.
I'm sure I got the Souk newspaper. And
I didn't write to the paper, sir.
Oh, you didn't write to the paper?
You asked about me writing a letter to the paper, which I didn't write to the paper.
Okay, now
perhaps if you could maybe just state your comment, because you are running out of time, and just let me know. It's just if you're asking about the letter, it's confidential. It's not on this evening's agenda. This portion of the agenda is strictly for council business, as it always has been.
Oh. Well, I'm sorry that I said that. I didn't.
That's fine. More than welcome.
I'll be here when that happens, if it's going to happen.
Okay.
I have
Thank
a few
you.
comments I'd like to make.
I'm sure you do. Thank you very much.
I think, yeah. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
I'll try harder next time.
Other speakers, please?
Carmen Newman, 2220 Terra Place. If you could just clarify for me, please, because I haven't been to one of these in a while, that in order for us to use our 2 minutes, that it must be specifically with what's on the agenda?
That's always been council procedures, that the public input portion here is always specific to items on the agenda, and there's always been a 2-minute allocation for time.
I recall the 2 minutes, but I don't recall
Yeah.
that, so I...
That's all, ever since I've been on council, the public input
Okay.
is specific to the agenda.
All right. So in order for any time to be allotted for any issue, then a person needs to make an application, as did
As a
the other 2
delegation.
parties, as delegation. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Other members of the public?
Hi, my name's Natalia Danilich, and I live at 3017 Manza Road. I just wanted to comment on the homelessness issue. I personally know of at least 4 families, some single parents, some both parents working, some one parent working, who all 4 of them right now are facing the possibility of being homeless in the next coming months due to the housing market being in a boom and their landlords having to evict them because of house being sold. I know also of a lot of people of my personal acquaintance who are homeless, whether it's due to drug addiction or simply not having good luck in their life at the time. And I just wanted to say that I'm very happy to hear that this is something that's going to be addressed very soon, and the sooner the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for presenting.
Hi, my name's Bonnie Royston. My address is 5714 Sion Road. I'm here in the same thing. I was in the Grant Manor fire, and I found myself afterwards having a really difficult time because I had a little small dog. I've just now, and that's a year later, been able to find a place. And it's high rent. It's putting me, like really financially stuck. And I know a few people from the building that still aren't even in homes because they can't have, there's no place for their pet. You're not allowed to take your pet or whatever. So, but I like to hear that, you were looking at it in the fall there, and I appreciate that. And I guess I'm new at this. So.
No, that's fine. I'm very sorry to hear about
it's been tough, so it would make it a lot easier if there was places to go to.
Over the years, there has been forums to deal with housing, and things change from time to time, and that's why it's timely for this council, I think, just to see where we're at and what the housing spectrum looks like and where the needs are. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are other members of the public?
Sorry, but I just want to say that there was at one time a portion at the end of the meetings that were open so public could speak to anything that wasn't on the agenda as well. And you might have forgotten that, but I believe under Wendell that was allowed. And that was kind of nice because there were other things that people would like to bring up. I think that's a good idea.
That was held during the committee of the whole. There was an open public
It was at the end of the meeting, and it was an open, you could speak on anything that wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah, it was during the committee of the whole.
And also, I just wanted to say when the council also moved to allow suites in all zoning, all zones, that was supposed to be for affordable housing. As I recall, that was what was used. Just for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lurs. Are there any other members of the public? You just need to turn on the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Guy. I live on 1615 Whiffin Spit Road. I would just like to say that I'm very much in favor of the homeless, some kind of a homeless program that Margarita Dominguez is suggesting, and I'm really excited about September as well, that the council will be looking into it. I would just like to say I own a small excavating business, and if there was such a project, I would like to be involved and donate all groundworks that needs to be done on any type of project for housing of any kind like this. The business name is Jasmine's Excavating, and put me in.
Thank you, Ms. Guy. That's very generous. I'd just like to state that the forum would be in the fall, so
Yeah.
perhaps September, October, November, in that time period.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Calling for a final time. Is there any other speakers this evening? Okay, so we'll move on in this evening's agenda into our bylaw section. Our first one is bylaw B1, bylaw number 604, official community plan amendment bylaw 400-7, and bylaw number 605, zoning amendment bylaw 600-13, Kennedy Closed Road. And there is a recommendation on page 47. Okay, is there a seconder? Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins, and that is that the stated bylaws be adopted. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item B2, bylaw number 636, zoning amendment bylaw 600-24, 7125 Grant Road. And we do have a staff report, and welcome, Ms. Johnston. Nice to see you.
Good evening. This is a zoning amendment for 7125 Grant Road West. The applicant has applied to rezone the property from rural residential 4, RU4, to small lot residential R3, with the intent of subdividing to create 8 strata lots. The applicant has also applied to include the property into the sewer specified area. There are 4 mobile homes on the property, all owned by the property owner. All tenants have been notified of the rezoning by the applicant. Grant Road West is an area with mixed residential uses. Within a 100-meter radius of the property, there are properties zoned rural residential, large lot residential, medium lot residential, small lot residential, low-density multifamily, and manufactured home park. The community amenity contribution policy has been applied to this rezoning. The applicant is aware of this and has agreed to the value of the amenity as calculated and to be contributed at time of the rezoning or at time of subdivision. The OCP supports this rezoning proposal for the following reasons. This rezoning is within the community growth area and is compatible with the surrounding uses. Rezoning this property will allow the creation of small lots that are well situated to transit services and are within walking distance to the town center. It is recommended that prior to final adoption of the bylaw, and as agreed to by the owner, that the owner enter into a development agreement by way of a Section 219 covenant with the District of Sooke to address the amenity contribution. And I believe the applicant is here tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Any questions from council? Thank you for the report. There is a recommendation on page 55. Okay, so...
Second.
So first reading has been stated by Councillor Loggins and seconded by Councillor Casper. And that is first reading to bylaw 636, zoning amendment bylaw to rezone the property located at 7125 Grant Road West from rural residential zone RU4 to small lot residential zone R3. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Moved second reading by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion on second reading? Councillor Loggins?
I usually would make a comment here about sidewalks, but that's later on the agenda, so I won't.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? The question that I have is that we don't have a meeting scheduled until September, so would the public hearing then occur at the first council meeting in September? Is that when that would take place? Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of second reading? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Second part then is that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing for bylaw number 636 in accordance with the requirements of the Community Charter and the Local Government Act.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And lastly, further, that council direct that prior to final adoption of bylaw number 636, the owner enter into a development agreement by way of a Section 219 covenant with the District of Suit to secure provision of amenities, and that council authorize the mayor and the CAO to execute the Section 219 covenant. Moved by Councillor Loggins, seconded by Councillor Casper. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, bylaw B. Second one, B3, bylaw number 645, Sucor Sewer Specified Area Amendment, bylaw 147-27, 7125 Grant Road West. And we have a staff report from our Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. In keeping with what Ms. Johnson just gave in the way of background with regards to this property, with regards to the rezoning, now that first and second reading has been granted, we recommend that inclusion of the sewer service area be adopted for recommended for approval for inclusion of the sewer service area for this property, as per recommended in the report.
Any questions from councillors? Councillor Parkinson.
Through Your Worship. And we do have enough room for the 8 additional to come online with the sewers?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so there is a recommendation, and that is that bylaw number 636, zoning amendment bylaw 600-24, to rezone the property located at 7125 Grant Road West from rural residential RU4 to small lot res. Is that the bylaw?
No, it's bylaw 645.
Looking at 645, the next one. That is that council received the petition for local area service for the property located at 7125 Grant Road West, legally described at Lot 8, Section 1, Suit District Plan 13885, and further that. Okay, so I think we'll do them in parts. So the first one, moved by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Casper. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And further, we're looking for first reading to bylaw number 645, Sucor Sewer Specified Area. Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Moved second reading by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Was carried unanimously. And third reading? Move third reading by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. B4, bylaw number 642, zoning amendment bylaw 600-28, 7090 Grant Road, 2105 Furwood Place.
Move adoption.
Moved adoption by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. B5, bylaw number 644, zoning amendment bylaw 600-30, Silver Spray, Souk Point, water lot W1 to W3 rezoning. We had received a certain amount of paperwork for council to read. Councillor Parkinson.
I would like to move the suggested action that council give third reading to bylaw number 644, zoning amendment bylaw 600-30.
Okay. Just to clarify here, what I'm reading on here doesn't match what's
in our books
on the screen. So are we going with... All I have is It's probably the same thing. It's just the suggested action in the paper says that council give third reading to bylaw number 644, zoning amendment bylaw 600-30.
Oh, Your Worship, if I can clarify, we're trying to make sure that the motions fully encapsulate what the action is, so that's just a little bit more explanatory.
Okay, so Councillor Parkinson, you are moving what's on the screen. Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Loggins. Discussion on the motion. Any questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, B6, bylaw number 646, zoning amendment bylaw 600-31, a portion of 7021 Grant Road. And we have a staff report.
Thank you, Your Worship. The property at 7021 Grant Road has been long established as a mobile home park consisting of 6.3 acres. So we got that. Thank you. This land is it is a primarily zoned manufactured home park or a mobile home park. However, due to anomaly, there was a small piece up in the northwest corner that somehow was left as a residentially zoned piece of the property. And this rezoning request is to deal with a housekeeping issue and to establish the remainder of that property or that portion of the property as a mobile home park, to bring the total property into conformity with the whole mobile home park zoning. There are currently 3 mobile homes located on the affected portion of that portion of the park. The applicant wants to rezone this portion of the property to the mobile home park to bring as I said before, to bring it into conformity with the existing zone, to bring everything into consistency with the zoning. This was brought to our attention when there was an issue related to bringing in a new mobile home park, and then the owners realized that there wasn't the anomaly that the property wasn't zoned correctly in that portion. So from a staff's perspective, we are considering this as a housekeeping exercise. I'm prepared to answer any questions. Oh, yes, the applicant, I believe, is in the audience if there was any questions to them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howard. Any questions from councillors? Okay, there is a suggested action then that council give first reading to bylaw number 646, zoning amendment bylaw. Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Second reading by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And further, that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing for bylaw number 646 in accordance with the requirements of the Community Charter and Local Government Act.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Casper, and also to confirm this public hearing then would be the meeting in September. Okay. Any questions from council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, B7. Bylaw number 647, zoning amendment bylaw 600-23, a portion of 6038 Suk Road and text amendment to the RU3 zone. And we have a report to council.
Thank you, Your Worship. The property at 6038 Suk Road is approximately 1 hectare in size. There are currently 2 dwellings on the property, and the site is located directly east of Cecinos Elementary School. The purpose of this application is to amend the zoning to the property to permit a community care facility, specifically to allow a daycare up to 60 children. The land is currently split zone, rural residential, and small-scale agricultural. The applicant has requested that the portion of the property currently zoned RU4 be rezoned to P2, community facility, and that the site-specific text amendment be considered for the RU3 portion of the property to allow for a community care facility. The RU3 portion of the property is located in the agricultural land reserve, so this portion will remain RU3 to accommodate agricultural uses. However, the applicants have asked the ALC to consider a non-farm use in this location. If the ALC approves the non-farm use, a text amendment will allow this use, in addition to other uses, is supportable. On March 29, 2016, Council move forward an application to the Land Commission for the non-use site to accommodate the proposal. Council also submitted a letter of strong support for this proposal based on an increased enrollment in the school district space becoming scarce and a need for a permanent home for steps in the future child care society, and the letter is attached for support. I've confirmed that the decision from the Land Commission has not yet been determined, but it is considered that will be sometime early in September before they have their decision.
Thank you, Mr. Howitt. Questions from councillors? No. So there is the suggested action that council give first reading to bylaw number 647, zoning amendment bylaw 600-32. Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. And second reading by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And lastly, that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing for bylaw number 647 in accordance with the requirements of the Community Charter and the Local Government Act. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Loggins. That'll be again in September. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Bylaw B8, or pardon me, Report B8, bylaw number 638, zoning amendment bylaw 600-33, 6816 West Coast Road. And we have a staff report. Well, thank you, Ms. Johnston.
This is a zoning amendment for 6816 West Coast Road. The applicant, Souk Options for Community Living Association, have applied to rezone the property from large lot residential to community facilities for the purpose of creating a permanent home for themselves. They are a nonprofit society that have established various programs over the past 18 years to support children, youth, and adults who have developmental and physical disabilities. There is a large single-family dwelling on the property that the applicant proposes to renovate to fit their needs. There is a rough gravel pathway in front of the property along West Coast Road, which continues east towards the town center. A paved sidewalk will be required to replace the gravel path at one point in time, which is why the Section 219 covenant is being requested. The area surrounding the subject property is predominantly single-family residential. In close proximity to the east is the town center, and there are various commercial businesses to the west. The OCP supports this rezoning proposal, as the rezoning is consistent with the objectives of the community residential designation, and the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding land uses and is close to the town center services. And is recommended that prior to final adoption of the bylaw, and as agreed to the owner, and the owner is aware of this covenant, that the owner enter into a covenant with the District of Souk to address the infrastructure requirements. Thank you, and I believe the applicant is here.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Any questions? Councillor Parkinson.
Through you, Your Worship, does that include any parking that would be required there for staff?
The covenant, or through Your Worship, the covenant is just to address the sidewalk. All parking requirements will be through the zoning bylaw at time of business license or building permit.
Thank you.
Any other questions from councillors? There is a recommendation then that council give first reading to bylaw number 638, zoning amendment bylaw 600-33, to rezone the property located at 6816 West Coast Road from large lot residential zone R1 to community facility zone P2. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Moved second reading by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Discussion? Seeing none, all those call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We also have that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing for the bylaw in accordance with the requirements of the Community Charter and the Local Government Act. Moved by Councillor Loggins, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Again, that would be at the meeting in September. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And further, that council direct that prior to final adoption of bylaw number 638, the owner enter into a development agreement by way of a Section 219 covenant with the District of Souk to address infrastructure requirements, and that council authorize the mayor and the CAO to execute the Section 219 covenant. Moved by Councillor Loggins, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us to RA1, reports requiring action. RA1, remedial action, 6543 Sooke Road. We do have a staff report. Welcome, Ms. Mills. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship, Council. I'm here to request Council grant the remedial action requirement a request for 6543 Sooke Road. Some background information. The neighbors on Solent have complained very loudly and clearly about the neglect and the garbage collected on this property. I have been in communication with the property owner, initially by mail, and outlined the bylaw requirements and the action that we require. He then requested I communicate by email. I have done so extensively and received no response. No further action has been taken to clean up the property. This property is across from Sooke Elementary. New neighbors into the area that have purchased homes are complaining about the odor, the rodents, and the various people coming and going from that property. So what I'm requesting is that Council grant the authority to arrange removal of the garbage and unsightly conditions of the property.
And just my understanding, I believe it's in the staff report, is that any expenses associated with this, if unpaid, would go on to the property tax?
That's correct.
Okay, for next year's taxes.
That's right.
Okay. Questions from members of council? Councillor Casper.
Is the owner of the property in attendance for an opportunity to be heard?
He is not. Okay. He has certainly been advised of the date and time and of the opportunity to address council.
Okay, thank you. I'll move the recommendation as outlined by our parliament enforcement staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, and that is that council directs staff to take remedial action regarding the unsightly premises at 6543 Sooke Road to ensure compliance with the bylaw number 296, unsightly premises and objectionable situations, bylaw 2007, and we confirm that the property owner is not present.
That's right.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much to our bylaw officer. Yes, just before Ms. Johnston leaves, we'd just like to send a welcome back and thank you very much for filling in as needed, and we appreciate your staff reports. All right. Thank you. Okay, RA2 is recommendations from our Parks and Trails Advisory Committee. The committee has met, and it looks like there are three recommendations that they've put forward. I'll start with the first one, and that's to recommend the elimination of watering of park lawns with the exception of Ed McGregor Park during Stage 2 and Stage 3 watering restrictions. Councillor Parkinson.
We have a member from the committee present to speak to these items, so can we hear first? Thanks.
Welcome, Mr. Ziegler.
I'm pleased to be here tonight. Thank you. Yes, I'll just briefly I can go through them sequentially. Yes, we're right now in Stage 1 water restrictions, and with the recent rain and water levels in the Sooke Lake Reservoir, we may well not advance to Stages 2 and 3. But what we recommended was if we were to advance to Stage 2 and 3 restrictions, that the lawns in our parks under our public authority in boulevards and so on would not be watered. We'd continue to water shrubs and flowers and newly planted items, but we felt as a conservation measure that we would recommend to council that in that more extreme conditions we would not water lawns under the public authority of the District of Sooke.
So if I may clarify, so anything that's newly landscaped, newly planting though, would still continue to be watered.
Right, so that we wouldn't lose those materials.
Okay.
But yes, it would be limited to lawns only.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And under Stages 2 and 3, there is permitted watering of lawns on certain days and in certain hours, like the hours are sort of collapsed under stage 3 relative to stage 2, from I think 4 in the morning till 10 in the morning under stage 3, and from midnight to whatever it is, 10 in the morning under stage 2. But the idea would be that there would be no watering of municipal lawns at all under stages 2 and 3, but shrubs and flowers would continue to be watered.
Okay. Councillor, thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Why don't we start with that first one then, and
Sure.
if you don't mind remaining up here, and then we can go
Certainly.
through them, okay? Councillor Parkinson
Through
and
you, Your
Councillor
Worship. When we say that we're not watering under the other stages, when we have new developments that are being made, or there are already developments where they have trees along the roadway, will we be watering them?
Certainly shrubs and
the
flowers
trees?
would continue to be watered. Newly laid grass presumably would be watered, but once the grass was in place, it would not be watered. It would
Right.
be,
I
part
noticed-
of ongoing maintenance. Sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me. I noticed on some of the subdivisions that I've been looking at where the trees do need to be watered as well, because some of them are dying, right? So
Certainly.
I would think that for new developments that we would keep doing that.
Certainly anything that would be on municipal lands, shrubs and flowers that were new would be.
Thank you.
Councillor Loggins, then Casper.
I support this, and I'll move the first recommendation.
I would second that.
Thank you. Seconded. Go ahead.
Thanks. So I would just like to perhaps say that if we did, hopefully we won't, if we did get to stages 2 and 3, perhaps we could put out an advisory that could go to our tourism centers and in our newspapers and advise people of why we are not watering these areas. I know when I worked at the Visitor Info Center, a lot of the tourists would come by and ask why the sides of the roads were not green. It was an expectation that visitors had. I don't think they need to be, but it would just be good to have that little education piece for our visitors and also for our residents.
Very
Thank you, Councillor Loggins. I think you tend to see green grass here in the wintertime, and as opposed to in the summer nowadays. Councillor Casper?
Okay, I support this. You know, as a member of the CRD Water Commission, we made the changes to our bylaw that actually impose more stricter regulations on municipalities. We felt that municipalities also have to show some leadership, and if we're asking the public to embrace watering restrictions, then municipalities should follow suit. Brown is the new green. Brown grass is the new green. And, you know, I think we'd be foolhardy not to recognize climate change issues in regard to our habits, you know, on many fronts. And more importantly is the utilization or improper utilization of the water resources we do have. We are very fortunate with the system that we have in the capital region. It's fairly unique in British Columbia. And I say that it's a truly a guarded resource. So, you know, I applaud your group coming forward and encouraging us to take those steps. And it's better to do it that way than feel the heavy hand of some bylaw enforcement officer from another agency that could level some serious fines. And, you know, I don't want to see that happen to our municipality. So I fully support it, and thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further comments from council? Councillor Parkinson?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Right. Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next one is an update on Broom Hill Park equipment.
Yes, there was an older structure, one particular structure that is rusting. It was put up probably in the early 90s, and there is rust on it. Some of these sort of protective caps at the end of the rods that the kids climb up on the structure have been removed or lost. So there's a bit of a concern about that one particular piece. And the suggestion is that we investigate the safety of that equipment, and we're relying to some extent on staff expertise that's present at our advisory committee meetings. And the feeling was that that did present a potential hazard. And there are much newer structures, for instance, some really nice ones in very good condition from 2009 that would still be available, and then that structure would be replaced after the more risky structure would be replaced after public consultations. So it wouldn't be a net loss, but it would be a safer structure. But we've asked that the council investigate the safety of particularly that structure at Broomhill Park.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. My understanding is there was a water feature of some sort at
Yes.
Broomhill Park. So is it possible, I'd like council to consider with this motion, the safety of the equipment is very important, but also sort of refurbishing the water feature, the water equipment, or what that would look like?
If I could speak to that perhaps just very briefly, Your Worship. There was no decision made by the advisory committee on the water park. One concern was it would be an estimate. I think I can refer to the estimate of anywhere between $100,000 and $300,000 to get it operational again, with an annual maintenance cost of $10,000 to $30,000. So
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was a little bit of a step back from that, at least for the time being. That's not to say that it couldn't be made operational again, but when we were given that actually by staff, that they were the ballpark figures, we thought we'll leave that one alone for a while, but we could certainly pursue that and see if we can harden those numbers a bit. We could certainly do that.
I think just having that information in the report would be helpful, but if my understanding was that there was something protruding from the ground that potentially may be a hazard.
Okay.
And so I think if it's left like that, then something needs to be capped off, so if it is in fact still doing that to make safe perhaps, but I think just for public interest, knowing that that is the cost of rebooting the water feature, I think I didn't realize it would be that.
Sorry, it wasn't to remove it, it was to bring it back into use.
Yeah, if we were to refurbish it, I didn't realize it.
But I misunderstood you, I apologize. Certainly removing that particular part of the water feature that's no longer in operation, I mean, that is a potential hazard, and we could look at that as part of the parcel, yeah.
Yeah, I think, both, and to have that there. Councillor Parkinson?
I'd like to move the recommendation that staff be directed to investigate the safety of the equipment at Broomhill Park and to remove any obstruction that is dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think once they come, they'll likely come back with a staff report, I think, that would outline these components, and then sort of removing, okay, it will come in the report. So that's moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And then the other one is that council investigate a pedestrian link between Horn and Goodmere Road.
Yes, there is a right-of-way that's owned by the district. There is land that goes kind of a potential multi-use path trail that goes between Goodmere and Horn. But there is a water drainage problem there, and there may even be a need for culverts or even a bridge. We were down there when we did our tour last year, and you can see the direction where the roads would link, and it's in the master plan from 2009 that there would be some sort of connection. But this water drainage issue gives us pause, so we were asking that a formal report be prepared to see just what would be involved before proceeding with the recommendation that actually be built.
Oh, that's great. I think staff are also reviewing drainage in that area as a whole, so it is sort of timely anyway. Comments from council? Councillor Casper?
I saw some nodding from staff, so staff, you are aware and you are on top of that drainage issue. I know with the extension that was just recently done, there were some drainage issues that have to be addressed, correct, on Goodmere?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Casper, we're aware of that drainage and we're aware of its age, and we're not too sure how much longer it's going to be around. We are looking at it. One of the concerns that we have with regards to any kind of trail over that is putting a piece of equipment to build that trail. It would certainly bring the end of the life to that culvert system. And there is an extensive amount of subsurface drainage in that area that we've got to be cognizant of as well. But we are looking at it, and we will be picking up some of that if we move forward with the Goodmere Road Extension study. We'll be picking up some more of the drainage information.
Great, thank you. Councillor Loggins?
So is this simply something we could direct staff to include in that report?
Yep, I would think so.
Yeah, we can. We haven't finished critiquing the RFQs yet, and it's certainly something that we could add in there with regards to a connection from a pathway point of view. But again, it's somewhat out of the scope from the drainage remediation, but we can look at it.
Yeah, I would still move the motion, and then whether it comes in the same report or one thereafter, perhaps, depending on how it comes. So, yeah. Moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Ziegler, and thank you to all committee members. Okay, our next one is RA3. We have a recommendation for them from the Climate Change Action Committee. And I believe there is a member of that committee here as well, Mr. Bateman.
Good evening. Jeff Bateman, 7083 Briarwood Place, and I'm here tonight as chairman of the Climate Change Action Committee. And members of that committee include Councillor Logans, Chief Sorensen, the Sauk Nation's Andrew Moore, Mr. Blackhall, Laura Hooper, Mark Ziegler, Nitya Harris, and Michael Takon. So there's quite an interesting group of folks have gathered under this particular umbrella. As you'll see from the minutes attached to tonight's agenda, at our last meeting we discussed a number of topics, some quite practical, such as an energy efficiency audit of the municipal hall here, and the potential for solar panels and an electric vehicle charging station here at City Hall. And some were quite visionary, namely the idea of Sauk joining other municipalities in Canada working towards 100% renewable energy by 2050. We came out with a very simple, practical suggestion, as you'll see here, that we'd like to see a study into the possibility of a commercial compost facility here in Sauk. As of 2014, there were 162 centralized composting facilities in operation across Canada. These facilities are a mix of publicly, privately, and combination operations. Some of them are Sauk size, such as Chemainus and Cumberland here on the island, and others are for larger municipalities, Saanich, Surrey, Whistler. Currently, kitchen scraps, as many people know, from Sauk homes and biosolids from our sewage treatment plant are shipped out of town at considerable cost to the taxpayer. Trucking biosolids to Heartland landfill twice a week costs us $110,000 annually. As for kitchen scraps, CRD municipalities pay the highest disposal costs in the country, according to Net Zero Waste Mateo Ojico, who was here a couple of times over the last 5 years discussing the possibilities of a compost facility in Sauk. Our committee, rather than seeing this organic waste shipped elsewhere, we'd like to see it processed locally and turned into Class A made-in-Sauk compost. It's a common sense approach to dealing with our own waste here and putting them to good use. So that's really where we're at. The committee would like council to add a line item to the 2017 fiscal plan that would pay for a feasibility study. Either that, or you could direct staff in the here and now to get busy on this subject. The study would ask certain basic questions. Can it be done in a fiscally sustainable manner? Might it go on agricultural or light industrial land? Might it be paired up with a resource recovery center that would feature a free store, glass and plastic recycling, and other zero waste innovations? And yeah, I think there's a mood in town to see this happen. Thank you.
And those would be the answers that we would want to see addressed or answered in the feasibility
Yes,
study?
exactly.
Okay. Questions from members of council? I like the idea, though. I think in terms of dedicating it as a line item, I think we may need to refer this to staff to have a sense as to what the feasibility study would cost. And or do you have a sense of what that might be?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I would imagine it would be a request for proposal.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay. Councilors, Councilor Casper.
Yeah, just for the benefit of the chair of the committee and other council members and staff and the public. Currently, the CRD is embarking on a pilot project in conjunction with the Peninsula Sewer System on dealing with the biosolids. That's a decision that was made only just a few months ago. So that's a work in progress. The outcome or what may or may not happen in regard to the large sewage system in the capital region, serving the core municipalities and also the western communities. Whether or not there will be some form of resource recovery with that system has not been determined because there's an independent committee or board that's been established to look at that. Currently, all of the biosludge disposal by our treatment facility and the others, whether it's a privately run, provincially administered, and regulated private sewage service system, they're also faced with user pay on this. There's a lot of work that would have to be done. So I just point out a caution because it's not something that perhaps we embark upon trying to reinvent the wheel. There is a lot of research that has been done by the CRD, and perhaps staff can look at that. Also in regard to household waste, and I'm talking yard and garden waste, food waste, the CRD has been funding an organization going as far back as the early 1990s, and actually we're looking at renewing their grant to provide composting information throughout the region, and part of that contract is for the organization to actually come out to communities and inform communities everything relating to composting, whether it's yard waste and also with food scraps. They also have the ability, they've entered into arrangements with suppliers of home-based composting units at a substantially reduced price from the retail market. Home Hardware, just example, not necessarily give them a plug. In the spring, they're actually this organization did come out to Souk to try to get some information on the whole thing about home compost.
Are you referring to the Compost Education Center?
Yes,
they do
right.
come out here. They were here last month.
And one of the things that I would encourage, the general public, and hopefully your group could help in doing this, is to get more information out to the public. The CRD has a website. They also have a fairly substantial database that they've collected over the years. There's no magic to it. It just takes the will and the energy for people to do it at home, because if they're doing it at home, then it's not trucked from their home to another place, whether it's in Souk, Heartland landfill, or some other private property. So I think that the information, we have to turn it back over to staff, because it's not going to happen magically. I want to see what their workload is and what others are doing before we add a line item. I think I echo what you just said, Mayor.
Well, what I'm saying, thank you, Councillor Casper, was more I would be looking for just information from staff on the feasibility report. So not necessarily for staff to do all of the work because I know that they're busy, but to look at doing the feasibility piece. In terms of what you can do at home, well, the biosolids isn't an option for residents. And yard waste, it really depends on the size of your property. And this is where the burning occurs in our community to clear sort of larger pieces that can't be composted in your backyard. So this is where it's sending this out. So it's just because here we don't know what the funding piece is. So I think in terms of what I would be looking for from staff is not for them to do the feasibility report, but to look at coming back with what numbers would be a staff report in terms of what that would look like and how much it would cost, so then we can allocate it in the budget. Councillor Loggins.
Thanks for presenting, Mr. Bateman. Our committee was really excited about this, and it did seem like something that a lot of other communities are doing really successfully and making money off of as well. So I think it would be really great if, and I'll make the motion too, that we ask staff for a cost on the feasibility study.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion on the motion? We'll just wait till comes back up on the screen.
I'll just note that in September you'll be hearing from Zero Waste Souk and results of the open space meeting that occurred back in April.
Oh, great.
And that a compost center, recycling center, a resource recovery center, these are some of the ideas that bubbled out of this community grassroots process. And it's quite exciting. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So here we have that staff provide an estimate for a feasibility study for a municipally run commercial compost facility. Is that clear for the mover and seconder?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, and thank you very much, Mr. Bateman. Okay, next one is RA4, award of a request for quote for the Grant Road shoulder widening. Refer to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Grant Road corridor was identified as one of the high priority areas to make use of the 2016 sidewalk improvement budget as per the strategic plan. This will enhance livability and access to the town centre. After informal consultation with contractors and local residents, it was determined that a 2-meter wide paved shoulder would greatly benefit both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. The Grant Road shoulder widening project was advertised publicly as a request for quotes. The quotes closed at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, June 28th, 2016. The district is hoping to get work done underway as soon as possible, and we hope that council will approve an award to the successful proponent, Wittich Environmental, for the works on Grant Road.
So that's moved by Councillor Casper, and that is that, okay, and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. And that is that Wittich Environmental Services be awarded the contract for the Grant Road shoulder widening project in the amount of $95,500 plus GST, and that the mayor and council, or pardon me, mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the contract on behalf of the district. The question I have, it's interesting that the first two quotes were so close and the third one was so far. Is that just sort of when contractors just throw out a number just with their workload? Sometimes you see that.
Your Worship, staff and myself, we evaluated the three, and we can't figure out why the one was so high. We just can't explain it why.
Okay.
I would suspect it has something to do with labor cost, but.
I see. Okay. And just if you could please clarify which section of Grant Road exactly, from which point to which point you'll be
That's right here.
doing.
Your Worship, it will be from the intersection of Otter Point Road down to Maple Avenue.
Okay.
And it will also include some intersection improvements at Otter Point Road itself to increase site visibility and also get away from vehicles tracking all the gravel out onto the road as they've been doing for several years now. So.
Okay, that's great. Councillor Parkinson, then Casper.
Through you, Your Worship. Is it being done on both sides of Grant Road or just on the one side, the widening?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Parkinson, it's just on the south side.
And my other question would be, would people know that that's going to be a sidewalk and not part of the roadway?
They will know because it'll be about 2 inches higher than the rest of
Okay,
the
so you're making it as a sidewalk.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Loggins?
And then just to clarify, it says in the report, there's room in the budget to do other projects. And I just wanted to know if they were prioritized over the rest of the road. Because I know we have a lot of development there, and I'm not criticizing whatsoever because I think this is fantastic. But just so that everyone understands, I guess, where the funds are being allocated.
Okay, this one was the first one out of the blocks. It gave us, sorry, Your Worship, through to Councillor Loggins. This is the first one out of the blocks to give us an indication of costing. We certainly have other priorities. We also have the ability to work with Wittich on other smaller projects as well. But we just needed to get this one out of the blocks to get an idea of costs.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casper.
Is it possible for you to also look at the left turn and the right turn heading north along Maple onto Grant Road? Because the way that the lines were painted and the configuration of how that was done, it's very difficult. If you're a driver trying to make those turns, it's almost impossible because in the right turn lane that's been allocated, there's curbing there, but there's vehicles that can actually park there, and that makes it difficult. So we created a right turn lane heading north to go onto Grant Road off of Maple, but vehicles can park on the side of the road, which basically makes that redundant. It seems ridiculous, but there has to be either some signage, some yellow paint there or whatever to stop people from parking there, because they're virtually blocking the lane that was clearly created for a right turn. Anyway, I just want you to look at it if you haven't seen it. I hope.
Yeah,
anyway.
no, I've seen that myself coming up Maple, where you do look like you're going in the turn lane, and then I totally agree. Yes.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Casper, we do have funding for painting this year, so hopefully we'll look at it. And also with the curb return, when the asphalt sidewalk is going down, perhaps we can work with the contractor to actually define where that turn area is.
Yeah. Thank you. The other question I had is, do you know when they would start this project and when they would complete it?
The intent was for them to get it started as soon as possible.
Great. Okay. Any further comments or questions from councillors? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, we're moving into our reports for information section. RI1, Mayor and Council reports. Would you like to start?
Well,
Councillor Casper would like to start.
I'll make it very short, just to give you an update. CRD, just to give everybody the lay of the land. There was unanimous approval, believe it or not, on the regional growth strategy, and the compromise solution that was brought forward and supported by our neighboring director, Mike Hicks, for the Juan de Fuca area, and that's in regard to the supply of water. The issues that you had raised in your correspondence to CRD in regard to how communities are classified or designated in the regional plan, those previous designations or descriptions of the community have been eliminated, and I think the description for Sooke is actually similar to what you had outlined in your letter. More importantly is that there's going to be greater reliance on our community plans as to how a community evolves and what it wants to call itself. as opposed to being dictated by the regional growth strategy. But more importantly, the key thing that was discussed was the provision of water both in our area, in the area that we want to see get additional water service, and also the Wantafuke area. And it's geared to what is in your community plan. So that's an important aspect. So, that's a bit of a milestone. Hopefully, when the bylaw or when the document goes out to the municipalities for approval, then hopefully we'll get unanimous approval again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casper. Councillor Loggins?
We had the Galloping Goose Trail ceremony today, and all of us here today were in attendance, and that went really well. It was nice to see a lot of people out on their bikes. Hopefully we'll get some photos from that soon. And another thing just to bring to everyone's attention is that at SD 62 there will be various health services that will be located within the 3 high schools, Belmont, Royal Bay, and Edward Milne. So at EMCS there will be a half day a week that's available for students to see a doctor, and they are currently trying to find a doctor, but those health services will be hopefully available as soon as possible starting this coming school year. And at Belmont, that's where kind of the hub of all of the health services will be. So they are going to be there during the full week, and they'll have doctors and nurses on site to help students with all of their health issues, and as well as anyone in that youth's community to have support for them as well. So I know it doesn't answer all of our health questions in Sooke, but students from Sooke will be able to access the services at Belmont and EMCS regardless of what school they go to. So that is good news.
Just a question for Councillor Loggins. In regards to the health piece there, where you mentioned a nurse, is the nurse based out of Belmont, or do you know if there's a nurse coming to Sooke?
At this point, we are hoping for a doctor a half day a week at Edward Milne, a doctor specifically.
Yeah.
Belmont will be the hub where they're hoping, I think it's a 5-year project, and they're hoping to have a larger array of services at Belmont. And if it is successful, there are so many different questions about what times of day will work better for them, what services will actually be offered, if they're able to get students from other schools, or if it ends up just being Belmont. So there's so many ifs at this point, but it's kind of a pilot to have everything centered at Belmont and then see what the demand is at that point and what the capacity is to expand it if that is a possibility.
Thank you. Councillor Parkinson?
I attended the opening of the golf course, which I'm very pleased to say is open, and I can hardly wait to go golfing, along with Mayor Maya Tate and Councillor Casper. And I just wanted to let everybody know that the judges will be here next week on Thursday for Communities in Bloom, and a number of local businesses have already been recognized, submitted by their peers for doing an outstanding job and giving great service to our town. So it is on the 21st on the Thursday, Friday, and they depart on Saturday. And Councillor Casper is going to be taking them out on a tour with staff member and the chair of the committee and looking at all different sites in our town. So hopefully we do just as well as we have in the past years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. So in regards to the health summit that occurred earlier, the Primary Health Working Services Group is finalizing the report that's going to be released. That's going to highlight our accomplishments and then the community feedback, priorities, etc. It's interesting fact that we talked about today is that Sooke is the biggest municipality in BC with no hospital. So, and this is because we don't have the rural status that would qualify us to obtain one. And this disappeared, my understanding, in the last census due to the population growth in Langford. And so that's where we were grouped in. But it's interesting, Duncan, Chemainus, Nanaimo. Nanaimo isn't rural status, but Duncan and Chemainus still obtain their rural status. So they have hospitals and can always attract more physicians. So it's something that we're sort of delving into. We also found out that the X-ray, although it's analog in Souk, is currently not operating because it broke down, and they're looking to see if there's parts available for this equipment. So, which would lead to an interesting, I suppose, if there is no parts, to see if that changes the licensing and whether or not a proper digital piece of equipment could be reassigned to Souk. So, won't know anymore. I just noticed that the location was really dark, and I was curious if it had closed, but the equipment is actually not operating at all. So there's some more to come of this. We talked a bit about it'll be interesting to see with the doctors being at the high school, because then that's a doctor that isn't at the clinic in Souk, and how that would impact the wait list and the times and the patients within the current medical unit, and with one going off to the high school. So it'll just be something to see how that goes over time. I did have a very brief meeting with our fire chief in terms of emergency protocol and process in the event of a major incident. Despite the rains and the sort of coolish July that we've had, we still remain in a drought condition. And this is largely due to the dry, hot weather that we experienced earlier in the year. So though it seems that we have a lot of rainfall right now, it's evaporating rather quickly on the ground level. So it's still like to ask residents to be very cautious, especially with cigarette butts being a major cause for flare-ups in the season. And I will be away on vacation from July 18th to August the 3rd. So Councillor Loggins, you will be acting mayor in that time. Thank you for stepping forward to deal with to meet the judges for the Community in Blooms. Councillor Parkinson will present our award at the Fine Arts Show during the artist celebration. And I think those are sort of a few things. But in the event of a special meeting being called, because we have no further meeting till September, then Councillor Loggins will be chairing. And that's all I have. So, sure, go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, I just forgot as well that it was part of a quick meeting with Tourism Victoria. They met with a few different stakeholders within the region, and we committed to having regular meetings throughout the next year to discuss sharing some tourism-y things in the region.
That was the meeting last week. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending. Okay, so on that note, we'll move into correspondence for information. I-1 correspondence received from June 21st to July 5th. Oh, yes.
Apologies, but the CAO does have one brief update.
Okay, pardon me. So this is where, and then, so maybe going forward, just request staff if you can add an RA2 CAO, because I always look at the white and not the gray. Thank you.
My apologies. I didn't think I was going to provide an update, but I think it's timely that we do, since we're breaking before until December 12th. And so in October, there's going to be a series of community engagement events with respect to economic development, our OCP refresh, and, of course, budget discussions. So I've kind of nicknamed October Talktober, and we'll be bringing the district staff out into the community to get input from as many people as we can on those three topics. So more to come in September.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, yeah, we're looking at correspondence next. So correspondence receive, a motion to receive. So moved. Second, so moved by Councillor Casper, second by Councillor Loggins to receive the correspondence. Any questions on it? There is one piece in there from Trans Mountain, I believe, and they had offered to provide an update on that project. So because we had invited Kinder Morgan to address us on their plans, I'm wondering if now that the National Energy Board, I think, has ruled in favor of Trans Mountain, would Council be interested in hearing where the project is at? I would, just to see where things go. So I can send out an email in response to the letter that received. Okay? All right, so all those in favor of receipt? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And just a rise in report, Council has determined that with the changes that are being made to parking along Highway 14, particularly in front of the Prestige to and Souk Harbor Resort Marina, that there is no parking to be permitted on the highway. And so signage is going to be implemented. It's unsafe for pedestrians and for cyclists to use that area, but we still have vehicles parking in there. So there will be parking tickets being issued. We don't have, I'm just looking for clarity on what is in our fees bylaw in terms of parking.
Yes, Your Worship, we do have a provision in there for parking if it's obstructing walkways for pedestrians, and et cetera. And $50 fine, I believe. So.
Okay. There would be a gentle reminder to begin. Okay, so that's a Horizon report. And then we're also contacting the Prestige and the Souk Harbor Resort Marina just to notify them of this change so that they can advise any organizers that host large events that they need to make arrangements for parking in other places. And pardon me, and also Jockstock to make appropriate arrangements for parking when they have large events. But filling up the highway and creating an unsafe corridor is not an option. Okay. So on that note, a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Loggins. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. I'd like to wish everyone a safe and happy summer, and we'll see you in September.